Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from a throwaway account from the relationship advice subreddit. And it says, I 28 female invited my 30 male best friend to dinner and he said, I'm not your husband. What does he mean? I 28 female got divorced about 3 months ago, and my 30 male best friend was there for me throughout the whole thing. We've actually been best friends since childhood and have always been really close. We hang out a lot, go out randomly, try new restaurants, and sometimes I'll cook and invite him over. We've always had this kind of friendship, so none of it ever felt unusual to me. Just 2 days ago, he asked me to go with him to try a new restaurant, and everything seemed completely fine. Then yesterday I called him and told him I'd made enough food for both of us and asked if he wanted to come over since he lives nearby. We've done this many times before, so I didn't think much of it. But his response completely caught me off guard. He said he wasn't in the mood for this lately, and then added, I'm not your husband. Honestly, don't understand where that came from. I wasn't asking him for a favor or expecting him to do anything for me. I was just inviting him to dinner like I normally would. I tried calling him afterwards because I wanted to understand what he meant, but he didn't answer. I don't want to pressure him by showing up at his place or blowing up his phone, so I decided to give him some space. Now, I'm just confused and wondering if I somehow crossed a boundary without realizing it. What did he mean by, I'm not your husband? Edit. Just to clarify a few things, since I've seen some people asking about this. I don't really talk to him about my divorce that much. He was there for me when everything was happening, but I'm not constantly venting to him about it or relying on him to deal with my problems. I don't like putting that kind of emotional burden on him. Also, I don't invite him over for dinner every week or anything like that. We do hang out regularly though, and inviting each other over for food has always been a normal part of our friendship. Sometimes we go out to eat, sometimes we try new places, sometimes we watch movies, and sometimes I cook and invite him over. He's actually been around more lately, and we've been hanging out more than we used to. That's why his reaction confused me so much. For me, this was just a normal invitation between two longtime friends, and I had no idea he might see it differently. So, people were speculating in the comments. The first commenter says, does he have a girlfriend? He could either think you develop feelings, he developed feelings, his girlfriend doesn't like the interactions, or since the divorce you've been relying on him more than usual and he got tired. Hope you replied saying no, he's single. Another commenter says, I think it could be a few different things. 1. He has a girlfriend and is trying to draw a line. 2. He has feelings and doesn't know how to tell you in a respectful way. 3. He's going through something in life and took it out on you. 4. He doesn't want to be the guy friend who's there for you when going through a divorce or breakups. 5. A billion other reasons that we don't know. And my first thought as I was reading it is that he may have feelings for OP. He supported her through the divorce. They've apparently been spending even more time together lately, and maybe somewhere along the way the friendship started feeling more like a relationship to him. If that's the case, he could be frustrated that he's effective filling the boyfriend and husband role without actually being with her, and he got to that point. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't jump straight to that conclusion because it could have been a whole host of other reasons which the other commenters are already talking about. But either way, OP didn't do anything wrong by inviting her best friend to dinner when that's something that they've always done. So it's going to be interesting to see what he's going to say going forward, if we get that in the update, of course. So let's jump straight into that, which says, hi. First of all, thanks for your perspectives on my original post. I wanted to give an update now that I finally have some clarity. As I mentioned in my original post, I called him once after he told me, I'm not your husband, but I didn't hear anything from him after that, until he showed up at my apartment. He looked really ashamed and nervous. He started by apologizing, and then we sat down and talked about what happened. He explained that he wasn't the one who came up with that comment. It was a woman he's been seeing recently, and she's the one who told him what to text me. This honestly surprised me. As I mentioned before, we've been friends since childhood, and we basically tell each other everything, but he had never mentioned this woman to me before. Anyway, I told him if I had known he was seeing someone, I wouldn't have agreed to go to that new restaurant with him in the first place, and I probably wouldn't have invited him over for dinner either. If she's uncomfortable with the way we interact, then I don't want to knowingly cross that line or make things harder for them. He apologized again and explained that things are still new with her, and that he was planning to tell me once things became more serious between them. He also kept asking me whether the text had hurt me and whether I thought he should end things with her. I told him no, but I think we should set some boundaries going forward to respect her wishes because I wouldn't want to do anything that makes her uncomfortable. He disagreed and said that he doesn't think we're doing anything wrong and that he'd rather things stay the same between us. He ended up staying for a few hours and we talked about everything, but he seemed really conflicted about the whole situation. As for me, I've decided to take a small step back anyway. I'm going to try to cut down on how often we go out and hang out, and I'm also going to stop our habit of eating at each other's homes for now. I love him as my best friend, but I don't want our friendship to get in the way of him having a healthy relationship. Commenter says, plot twist, that woman doesn't exist and he wanted to make you jealous. I'm glad that commenter said that because towards the end of that post, when he was saying he disagreed and he doesn't want anything to change, it kind of felt that way to me. OP said, I really hope that's not the case because I trust him completely. If I found out he made all of this up just to make me jealous, I honestly wouldn't even know how to process it. I don't think I could see our friendship the same way again. Commenter says, quoting, I don't want our friendship to get in the way of him having a healthy relationship, and then says, if she's this jealous in a newer relationship, it's already not healthy. Commenter says, I get it. You're trying to take the higher road, but this woman he is seeing sounds a bit jealous and territorial if you ask me. And one more says, I'm low-key skeptical about her saying any of this. Seems all we have about her is what he says, and he clearly has feelings for OP. And there were still people talking about him basically testing her, see if she will ask him to break up so maybe they could be together. Other people saying if this is a relationship that he's in and there's a whole bunch of red flags to it already. But what do you guys make of that situation? What do you think is actually going on? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's have another story. Now our next story comes from Caregiverless8826 from the True Off My Chest subreddit. And it says, I caught my mum with our neighbor just weeks after my dad passed away. This is my burner account. My dad passed away a few weeks ago after a long illness. It's been devastating for our whole family, and I'm still trying to process everything. Yesterday I went home to see my sister and ended up walking in on my mum, 38 female, having sex with our neighbor, 55 male. What makes it even worse is that he and my dad hated each other for years. They were constantly fighting over neighborhood disputes, so seeing him of all people was a complete shock as well. I completely lost my temper. I yelled that she was the worst wife and mother imaginable, told her I hated her, and walked out. Since then, she's been calling and texting non-stop, but I can't bring myself to answer. Right now I feel like I've lost my entire family, and I honestly don't know what to do. Commenter says, the thing with grief is that you don't get to dictate how others deal with it or when they move on. You said that your dad was very sick for a long time. Is it safe to assume that both of your parents knew that it was heading towards death? If so, it's normal that people grieve their partner's death prematurely, making it easier for them to move on faster after the actual death. Opie says, that's a fair point, and yes, we all knew my dad's illness was terminal. It went undetected for a long time, and by the time it was diagnosed, it was too late. He was bedridden for months and everyone knew how it was going to end. Someone said, how old is OP? OP says 18. Commenter says, people grieve in different ways. Your way seems to be the fucking worst for everyone around you. Stay away from your family until you can behave. Your mother did nothing wrong. You, however, owe her a huge apology after you fucking gotten yourself together. OP says, I'm not close with my family except for my mum and sister. I do owe her an apology for being so aggressive about it. Commenter says, well, maybe your mum and dad were just together in the end to take care of him through his sickness, and they both knew that and had already checked out. OP says they definitely had their ups and downs, but I do believe they loved each other. They just weren't the type to show it openly. Commenter says your mum is 38 and you live independently from her. OP says, I live on my university campus. Commenter says, chances are your mother isn't as promiscuous as you think, and that she actually has been having an affair with a neighbor for quite some time. Supporting someone through a long illness, as she did with your father, requires enormous sacrifices, and finding some comfort can be incredibly valuable after everything she had been through. Let her tell you her side of the story. You can judge afterwards. Considering everything she did for your father by supporting him throughout all those years, which was a tremendous sacrifice. you can at least give her that chance. Opie says, I never said she was. I understand your perspective and you make some fair points. And the commenter says, your feelings are valid. They're your feelings. You are allowed boundaries. If who your mother is choosing to be with makes you uncomfortable, then I advise building distance. Your mental health is important also, and you're allowed to protect your own peace, especially as you're grieving right now. Opie says, thank you. I really needed to hear that. I'm not going to lie, those comments were pretty wild for me. Their dad died only weeks ago and then walked in on his mother with a neighbor that his dad apparently hated. Come on now, that's going to feel like a huge betrayal when they're already grieving themselves. And his mother is allowed to deal with her grief however she wants, and after months of caring for a terminally ill husband, there could be a lot going on that Opie doesn't know about, but expecting an 18-year-old who just lost his father to immediately process that calmly is asking a huge amount. And I'm just trying to cast my mind back to losing my parents and trying to put myself in that position kind of. And the neighbor being someone his dad hated, that would mess me up badly. There's no way around that. Does it mean 100% that was an affair beforehand? Probably not. But I can absolutely understand why Opie would think that way. But 2.5 weeks later, Opie comes in with her update and says, this is an update to my previous post. The original one is on my profile. Some people asked for one, so here it is. First of all, thanks to everyone who commented on my last post. I never expected that many replies. Reading different perspectives helped me calm down a little, and I realized I wasn't completely insane to react in the way I did. Some info I forgot to mention in my last post. I'm 18, my sister is 10 and lives with our mum. My mum is 38 and the neighbor is around 55. After everything happened, I went back to my dorm and texted my mum that I needed some time. It's been a couple of weeks since then and my head is a little clearer. I've also started therapy. Also, after talking to my therapist, I felt a little more ready to speak to my mum, so I talked to her. We finally video called. First, I apologized for my words and told her that I didn't mean any of them and I do love her. Watching her struggle to breathe through the tears, well, I tried to calm her down is something I don't think I'll ever forget. We talked, and she told me he isn't as bad as he seemed. Apparently they met at a support group months ago. He was very supportive and after a while she started opening up to him. She swore nothing physical or romantic happened while my dad was alive, only that they became emotionally close over their shared grief. She explained that while her marriage was tense, Dad had asked her to move on long ago, but she just wanted to be there for him even if she felt their relationship was kind of over. Then she said that she wasn't looking for another relationship, just didn't want to be alone for a while. She doesn't know how it all escalated, but admitted they slept together a couple of times and that she does like him. She kept saying she loves my dad and her kids and that no one could ever take our place. She promised not to keep secrets from me anymore. I'm supposed to be angry at her but still feel conflicted. Also, I couldn't tell if she was defending him or her own choices. It felt like she wanted to continue with him. My therapist suggested that I distance myself a bit by setting some boundaries, but not by cutting contact, to focus on my own healing. I still have a lot on my mind that I want to talk to my therapist about, but for now, I just wanted to thank everyone who reached out after my last post. It genuinely helped more than I expected. A commenter says, I want you to imagine something. Imagine you married the person you're dating right now and were locked into that relationship for 20 years. Whatever fun you're having as a baby adult in college, your freedom, your opportunities, take all those away and imagine being at home struggling with a newborn instead. Imagine all your friends leaving you behind while you are by yourself figuring out how to run a household and be a spouse and a parent at your age today. Your mum was 19 to 20 when she had you. Might have been pregnant with you when she was the age you are right now. 30s are the prime of life for a lot of women, and she lost her youth to parenting and caregiving. People are getting married and having their first baby in their late 30s. She's probably grieving in ways you can never comprehend. Mum can be an imperfect, messy, hurting person, just like you, like anyone. Take it easy on her. Nobody taught her how to be a widow. Opie says I do sympathize with her. That's probably why I decided to forgive her. She's flawed, but she's still my mum, and I still love her. Commenter says, I quoted on your last post about how your father probably encouraged her to seek something elsewhere. In his state, I'd want the same for my partner. Shit's sad, man. And I got told I was crazy because no one would ever do that. End-of-life care is insanely difficult and taxing on every part of you. Emotionally, financially, physically. Heck, as the ill person, I feel so angry and sad about it. I'm glad you found closure with your mum, OP. OP says thank you. I don't know if I'd call it closure yet, but I do understand things a little better now. I'm glad we talked. Commoner says, it's okay to be upset and feel betrayed. You just lost your dad, and that's a big loss. But two things can be true at the same time. Your mum just lost the person she built a life with. Even if the romantic relationship was essentially over, that doesn't erase the years and experiences that built their lives together. That's a big loss too. Seeing as your father passed from a long illness, maybe your mother was suffering from caretaker burnout. She needed an outlet for all the grief and complicated feelings. They bonded over that grief, and not to gross you out or anything, but if the romantic connection was over and your father was ill for so long, imagine how long it's been since she had anyone even look at her that way. She's your mother, but she's also a relatively young woman. Go to therapy and take your time processing your feelings, but also acknowledge the reality of your mother's lived experience. Good luck, internet stranger. OP responded saying thank you. Therapy is already helping me realize a lot of things. Commoner says, this is tough. While I agree with your anger, your mum is at a strange stage in her life where she is terrified of being alone. Before she knows it, she'll be alone in that home. Kids grow up and have their own lives. It was in fact extremely fast to move on. Then again, I don't know the dynamics of their relationship when your father was still with us. Sounds like their relationship ended long before he passed. I'm sorry, OP. Best of luck navigating this. She's still your mum, and we all grieve and move on differently. OP says I understand, but I honestly don't know how I'll be able to handle it if she decides to move forward with that man. Commoner says, why did your father even dislike him? You've never said the reason why. OP says, I don't remember much because I was a kid, but they used to be friendly. I think it all changed after he punched my dad over some comment or something, and after that they used to fight even over minor issues. Commoner says, unpopular opinion here, but your mother needs to cool it with this guy. You and your sister lost your dad mere weeks ago, and she's prioritizing this arsehole. And he is, we all know it, over a grieving children. Your therapist isn't wrong really, but you just lost your dad. Who'd you go to if you're low contact with your mum, and just so she can get her rocks off? Please, she has the rest of her life to move on. OP says, I wish she'd realized that too. OP on what the neighbor was doing at the grief support group. Did he lose his wife and partner? OP says his own wife left him years ago, and she left the marriage, and I honestly don't know much else. What is the reason for OP to be mad about the neighbor? OP says, I don't like the particular guy. If they get serious, he could become a big part of my sister's life, and I'd have to spend time around him too. Another commenter says, Dad's gone, Mum still needs to have a shoulder to cry on. He is there. Things happen. You can be mad about it if the guy's a bad person to your mum, but let's be real. She's still a young woman with life ahead of her. Let her explore. She's paid her dues in the marriage that is now unfortunately over. She's free to bang whomever she wants. No need for the guilt trip. You may not like it. You may even see it as betrayal, but the fact is, she's a widow and free to choose. And before everyone starts to come after me, I've been in your position. Mum died. Dad had new ladies in his life. I didn't like them at all until I stopped seeing them as replacement mums and just his companions. OP says, yeah, I think you're right. Therapy has helped me realize a lot of things I wasn't seeing before. One more commenter says, this is a very personal matter I suppose, but I can't stand people who can't control their urges when it clearly comes at the detriment of others. It's such a crude thing to do in my opinion. Distancing yourself from processing over time is probably the best thing too. OP says, yeah, I think some distance is probably the healthiest thing for me right now. Now, we don't choose how we grieve, but if I'm being completely honest, and I'm not saying I'm right, I'd probably feel very much the same as OP. If my mum got with a man my dad hated only weeks after he died, and then I found out that they had already been getting emotionally closer before my dad passed away, it certainly wouldn't make me feel great. Again, I'm not saying I'm right, but I know I'd feel that way. That doesn't mean I think that the mum is a bad person either. She'd been caring for a terminally ill husband for a long time, probably felt incredibly lonely, and probably had been grieving what was coming long before he actually died. But this wasn't just some random man his mum met afterwards. This neighbor had apparently punched his dad in the past, and the two of them hated each other afterwards. That's a lot for an 18-year-old once again, who just lost his father, to suddenly process. I really hope that they're able to build their relationship back to what it was. Who knows what the mum is going to be doing going forward, but he's apologized for what he said, started therapy, and listened to his mum and is trying to understand her side, even though he's still uncomfortable with it. But going to be interested in your perspectives on this one. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. and let's have another story. Now, our next story comes from a throwaway account, and a quick trigger warning before we do get into this one: it contains body shaming, so if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps always down in the description, along the timeline below. Thank you. My 24 female co-workers are bullying me over my weight and eating, and HR refused to do anything. Throw away because I feel pathetic writing this, and I'm not sure whether I'm completely overreacting or not. Sorry about the horrible grammar, spelling, and longness. I've worked for a helpline for the past 5 years. It's a small, specialized helpline, so there's only around 12 to 15 people on the floor at once, plus 6 office staff, HR manager plus assistant, admin, and payroll staff. Due to the timetabling, we take our breaks in our teams. In my team, there's myself, Julie, 23, Sally, 35-ish, and Joan, 45-ish. Julie and Joan are overweight, while Sally is very obese. Joan has been with the company since the beginning and is besties with the HR manager. About 6 months ago, I started to bring a packed lunch to save money, rather than buying from the fast food place next door to take back to the canteen. Ever since I stopped going with my team to buy lunch, they've started some sort of weird vendetta against my weight and eating habits. It started off by commenting on my lunch, typically pasta or meat/veg, rice and veg. Every day, they started making snidey remarks about what I was eating. Let's say that it looked disgusting / how they don't know why I'm eating that rabbit food crap / rather be fat than starve themselves, etc. They also started to say how I thought I was better than them / deliberately trying to make them feel bad, despite me never ever mentioning their weight or diets. I'd tell them that I enjoyed that dish, that I wasn't on a diet. Despite this, they'd still make comments about starving myself or being a rabbit, even after seeing me eat. They'd also make comments about how lucky you skinny bees are that you can eat anything you want. They'd say these things every single day. They'd stop when I asked, but I'd ask them time and time again not to make comments like that, and the next day, they would. I'd ignore this, and to be honest, it didn't bother me that much. They then moved on to insulting my body. They'd make comments about how skinny I am, that my arms look like twigs, I shouldn't lose any more weight. They told me I'd never get a boyfriend until I put on weight, and would talk about celebrities with bodies similar to mine, saying how disgusting and boyish they looked. I've gained weight since I started eating better. I'm an 8 UK, but I'm very fit and athletic, and have clear muscle definition with no bones sticking out. I do not look underweight by any means. I tell them not to make comments about my body, as I felt it was hurtful and inappropriate. They'd stop, tutting, rolling their eyes and mumbling under their breath about how I was being dramatic and shoot each other looks. Again, this continued. One day, about a month ago, I told them they wouldn't like it if I made comments like that to them, only to be told, being told you're skinny is a good thing. You can't be bullied for being skinny. I reiterated that I found it upsetting and didn't want them mentioning my food, eating, or weight, and that I would take things further if it continued. To be honest, it was just an empty threat, and I chose instead to eat lunch outside alone. I'd still make comments during work. The job involves some web chat and emailing, and we often have downtime to chat. Anyways, as the time has gone on, they got worse and worse. 2 days ago, I was talking to a girl from another team about the pizza I had the night before, and I overheard Sally joking that I probably threw it straight back up. The final straw was today. There's building work going on opposite my building, so I decided to have lunch in the canteen today to avoid the noise and dust. Joan, Sally, and Julie decided to hold an intervention for my eating disorder. Like I mentioned above, I do not look underweight, and they've seen me eat pretty much every day for 5 years. This was purely malicious. I basically lost it and yelled at them. My team leader was in the canteen at the time and took me into the corridor. She told me that if I was having problems to take it to HR. She was supportive and said she'd noticed they were jealous and being mean to me, but there wasn't anything she could do about it as it was an HR issue. So I went to HR. As I mentioned at the beginning, Joan is best friends with the HR manager. I told the HR manager everything, to have her tell me I was wasting her time, and that skinny shaming wasn't real, and that everything they said was meant as a compliment. I asked to file a complaint and she refused. I can't remember the rules for making complaints exactly. We'll check the code of conduct tomorrow when I go in, but from memory, it's the same as warnings. Example, I have to give verbal, written final complaints before things can escalate above HR. I rather pathetically stormed out of her office and left work for the day. I'm at a loss what to do now. I've spoken to my co-workers in HR to be told that this problem is not a problem and they won't do anything about it. I'm trying to go through the proper channels and being denied. I have in the past asked to swap break times and been told I can't due to timetabling. I'm planning on asking to switch to another team. I'm job hunting, but I live in an area with high unemployment, and so I don't want to leave my job without having another in its place. Am I blowing this out of proportion? I feel like such a pathetic little child. And there was loads of comments on this basically saying save every interaction with both HR and these people. Some people suggesting Citizens Advice, which is a free service that gives people advice in the UK, and just make sure to email HR everything so you get some kind of trail and it's not all verbal. But OP does come in with an update and says, I want to start off by thanking everyone for their comments. I really wasn't expecting such a response. A few people advised me to record my co-workers. We aren't allowed phones on the floor due to data protection laws. We are allowed them in the canteen, but as our lockers are downstairs, I usually grab it on my way out for a lunchtime cigarette, check it outside, then put it in my locker on my way back up. I'm obviously going to start taking it into the canteen now. Some of this might be out of order, so bear with me. So to start off, I logged as many incidents as I could remember exactly into a little diary. I actually managed to remember quite a lot, using texts, messages, food plans for the dates and details. Tuesday morning I'm outside smoking before my shift and my line manager joins me. She asks if I'm okay and what happened with HR. I tell her and she told me she expected as much, and that I should take it higher and she would back me up. She also tells me that we're bidding for a government contract, which would mean a lot of opportunities, and so I need to stick around. Go to start my shift and, as advised, sent the HR manager an email about how I was again requesting she file an official complaint, included details, and made sure to mention things like hostile working environment and harassment, and mentioned I logged events and had witnesses. About 30 seconds after I sent the email, the HR manager comes onto the floor and asks me into her office. When we're there, she asks me what the email was about, and I pretty much repeat it word for word. I ask her what she's going to do, and she says she'll file the complaint and speak to my co-workers. I go back to my desk and email her asking for the notes from our meeting. She replies saying I'll talk to them later on today. A non-evil co-worker makes a joke about how milky my tea was, and Joan says, "Oh, careful, you don't want to get done for bullying her." It's very clear the HR manager has just told my co-workers about my issues, rather than talk to them. Our director comes in on a Wednesday, so before I leave for work I email her and ask if I can speak to her when she comes in. The next day comes and she finds me on the floor and asks me to go to her office on my break. I tell her everything, making sure to include all the buzzwords about HR's lack of help. I also insinuated that I had taken legal advice. I felt as though the director also didn't believe in skinny shaming and seemed pissed off at me for bringing it to her, but since she thought I'm going to sue them, she seemed to take it seriously. She said she'd speak to HR and make sure this was resolved. Thursday, I meet my line manager outside for a cigarette before work, and she tells me that after I finish my shift, I work 32 hours a week. Julie, Sally and Joan work 40, so they usually start and finish a bit earlier and later. That she'd been called into a disciplinary meeting with each of the co-workers. Line manager tells me that while Julie and Joan were apologetic in their meetings, Sally wasn't. Instead of accepting their warning and agreeing not to continue, she tried to blame it on me, claimed that I was purposely bringing in packed lunches to shame her and how I was rubbing my body in her face, not literally, and trying to make her feel bad about herself. She also claimed it was ridiculous and that thin people couldn't be bullied or receive negative comments. Julie and Joan received verbal warnings and Sally received a written one as she had a previous warning for her attendance. Next step is final, then fired. Later that day, Joan comes up to me and apologizes, tells me she didn't realize that she was being offensive, was being motherly, and got caught up. I told her several times when she made comments it was offensive, and so I felt like she was pinning it all on Sally, who I do believe is the ringleader. But the other two are grown women and responsible for their own actions. Julie has also so far ignored the topic, been a lot friendlier. I've seen Sally trying to goad the other two into bad behavior. We work in a paperless office, and as we're a very specific helpline, we have a lot of downtime, so we tend to stalk the Daily Mail website, which isn't exactly the most female body-friendly publication out there. Several times Sally has asked if the other two have seen pictures of certain celebrities with body types like mine. Example, ugh, did you see that photo Miley Cyrus posted in bikini? How horrible did she look? I had the impression she's been trying to get the other girls to trash talk those bodies so she can still be mean to me in a passive-aggressive way, without actually saying anything herself. And again, I could be reading into it too much, but I honestly don't care anymore. It's very clear Sally is a bitter woman projecting her own insecurities onto me. So, it looks like a happy ending. I'll make sure to log any further incidents and bring them to HR. Thank you, Reddit. I love you all. But now, I'm going to turn this one straight to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? A lot of people still telling OP to be extra careful, still document everything, etc. But what are your thoughts on this situation? Let us know down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here. And hopefully I'm going to see you in the next one. Take care and much love.